Hey guys, so in this video I'm going to explain as to why you should not be reading the Vedas, simply because the Vedas are to be chanted and not merely read. See, if we look at the Vedas, let's look at the origin of the Vedas. The Vedas had an initial name known as Shrutis, meaning literally meaning sounds or that which was heard, right? So the reverberation that exists in the cosmos, the vibrations that pervade the entire universe, was heard by the rishis, the sages, in the form of sound waves, sound energy, together with the knowledge associated with it, and they perceived it. And it was later passed on to disciples through a Guru Shishya method, where the Guru, the teacher, repeats or recites the particular Veda, and the student grasps it, and he repeats, and so on. This is how learning was done. There was no written form of the Veda until very recently, some thousand years back, when people stopped chanting the Vedas. And that's when Veda Vyasa, in order to preserve the Vedas, he wrote it down. So you should understand that the written form of the Vedas was not the primary way of transmitting the knowledge of the Vedas, but it was rather chanting. In our Indian culture, knowledge was always transferred through sound energy, right? Just say, to give a view about this, knowledge can be stored in many ways. It can be written down, you can use storage devices, pen drives, and many more, right? So in our ancient culture, sound was given the priority, and because this was the best way of preserving the knowledge, so all the knowledge that we had were preserved in the form of sound energy, right? So it could not be basically destroyed, because these sounds are the very vibrations that make up the universe, right? So this was how our ancients gave importance to the sound. Unfortunately, what has happened today is that people generally think that learning the Vedas is just reading some translated version of some thing that you find in the Google or some online format. You just read a translated version, which is nothing more of a commentary of someone who has read the Vedas. This is just a very superficial level, and a written form, you can just perceive the Vedas in any way you like. Right, so if you read it just like that, it's nothing more than a bedtime story, because different people perceive and interpret the Vedas differently if you're just reading it in a mental way. What has to be done here is, what you need to do is to truly grasp the knowledge of the Vedas, is to chant it. If you chant the Vedas repeatedly, frequently, meaning here is quite secondary, right? Because the meaning, you perceive the meaning according to the level of your consciousness. To give a very good analogy, let's say when you were in primary school, you would have been taught that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, because at that level your consciousness can only grasp that level. So this concept of the sun rising and setting is not entirely correct. So as you progress to higher grades, you learn about how the Earth itself rotates about the sun, and the sun actually does not rise or set, it's just immobile, and it's the planet we reside in which rotates. And as you progress, the understanding, the way you perceive the truths changes, it gets enlarged. So this is how Vedas function also, right? The meaning that you have added in your mind about the particular hymn or the Vedas does not really matter. As you chant it daily, the knowledge blossoms, and you start perceiving the Veda, the truths of the Vedas in different levels, different dimensions open up, and you perceive the truths in higher levels until you get self-realized. So this is how Vedas work, and this is why they always emphasize that you chant the Vedas very often, because this is how the knowledge of the Vedas gets transferred to you. It's not merely by just reading a translated form of it, as what many people do, and they claim that they know the Vedas and everything. The Vedas, if you mentally, logically perceive, it wouldn't make much sense, because they contradict each other in so many ways. A particular Veda, your consciousness rises and gets tallied with the truth through that Veda, and you get total correct understanding. Not correct, you get a deeper understanding as to what the Veda conveys. In other words, you could also say that the very knowledge of the Vedas, that very part of the Vedas that you are chanting, becomes one with you. You become merged, you become very close, or you attain oneness with it. So your very being reverberates with that truth of the Vedas, and this is a very much true that everyone should experience. You can read it. I'm not saying that you should not read it. You can read and make inquiries about it, because the very literal translations of the Vedas themselves are so unique, right? So you could read them, but importantly, make sure that you chant it. Even if you do not understand the translation or the meaning conveyed by the Vedas, chant it, and I'm sure that the knowledge of the Vedas will reveal upon you, reveal themselves to you, and you'll be able to grasp maturity in your consciousness, and you would really understand what the Vedas are trying to convey. This is the true way to appreciate and love and get soaked in the truths of the Vedas. Right? So it's not just merely about reading, and I hope that whoever who is interested in Vedas, do not just read and translate the version, learn and chant it. Chant according to the pronunciation, chant according to the swaras. This is why Vedas also have the swaras as a very important aspect to them. Swaras are the pitches, they rises and falls when you chant the Veda, because this is the in relation to the sound waves which was perceived or heard by the rishis, and as you follow these swaras, that's when that knowledge or that truth gets expressed within you. So thank you for watching, and so I hope everyone takes an effort to learn some Veda, some simple one. You can begin with some simple one. Even Gayatri mantra, the simple Gayatri itself is a Veda, part of the Veda. It's the mother of the Vedas. So adhere to some portion of the Vedas and try, experiment it with yourself. Just chant it regularly, adore it, give respect to it, and you will find as to how your consciousness rises and how your consciousness heightens, and how it tallies with the truth of the Vedas, and how you perceive the Vedas different dimensions. Thank you for watching.